Okay, it's April 7th. We're going to talk about this week in landscaping. We are right dead in spring now. Grass is growing like crazy. A lot of plants are showing off. I have a handful of things here I wanted to show you. So this is kind of an ugly red yucca, but it's a red yucca. These things, I saw this when I was on a walk with my family yesterday. These things are bulletproof in Texas. They're fantastic native plants. These red flowers you can see coming off the top pop up March through May, so spring, and even some into the summer. Hummingbirds and other pollinators love them. You don't need to worry about watering these things. So they're like extremely low maintenance pollinator native plants that have color, like pretty special. Obviously, you need to match them with the style of your yard, but this is a Texas, or I'm sorry, not Texas, a red yucca, and it's red because of the top up here. You can get some variation in these colors, darker, lighter, coral, but generally this is what it looks like. And then these are the seed pods from last year. You can see them on there. Um, I took this picture because it's not perfect because it's a pretty new lawn, but this person, it's kind of an ugly picture, I'm sorry, but I liked the design here next to the driveway. We did not do this job, but I thought it was well done and clean. But the Bermuda here is looking amazing. So what they've done really well here is they're cutting it really short. I mean, this is like an inch maybe, which is really hard to get done. You have to cut your yard like every 5 days in order to get it this height and this consistency. But Bermuda likes to be cut short if you can do it regularly enough and it's full sun. If you're getting into um, some shaded areas or some heavier traffic areas, then you want to maybe keep it a little bit longer, 2.5 inches, more like that. But if you can do it, you got a chance Bermuda. If you can really get it cut weekly, it can get really thick and beautiful. And I thought this yard, I should have gotten a better picture of the overall yard. It almost looks fake. You get a couple of spots like this so you can tell it's real, but it's a beautiful yard. And then the landscaping was done well as well, or done well at also. Um, I was walking through the neighborhood and saw this just in the middle of someone's driveway. I don't know how they park here. They must park like there's some actually some in the middle of this side too. So they must like just dodge this part. I thought it was cool. One of the things that I was doing was kind of a deep dive on blue bonnets. Um, we've got another couple weeks of these things being showy. They're great for pollinators. But they will actually, after they start to dry out, they have little seed pods on them. They look like green, a little bit hairy, and those will actually harden. And then they're one of these types of plants that they actually pop and it throws the seeds after they've hardened and dried out. And that's how it spreads its seeds. You can actually collect these and put them in like a paper bag. Don't put them in a plastic bag. You can collect these little pods and let them dry out and then spread them back in the fall. Um, Wait till the fall because it needs a full cold cycle um, before you spread them. Obviously, they spread their own seeds out in the spring for the following year. But the best thing if you're trying to do collect them with your kids or just for fun yourself is to put them in a brown paper bag, and once they dry out, kind of break them out. They're little tiny little black or brown seeds, and then you can collect those and spread them in the fall. You may want to add like sand to it to make it easier to just spread them out evenly. But I thought this was a cool little yard thing, and this is the same yard. This is the blue bonnets in the backyard, but this is a four nerve daisy, highly successful, bright native plant here in Central Texas. This is it hasn't started blooming yet, but it's a salvia gregae or an autumn sage is the other name for it. And this will get really big. This is kind of a leggy, small Texas sage here. I think they've got some skullcap back here, but some good native plants in the yard. I took this picture because this is a classic example of a yaupon, holly, or any kind of foundation shrub. This is probably 20, 15 plus year shrub, old shrub, very mature, but they didn't maintain it well as it was growing. First of all, I don't think it was a dwarf variety of yaupon, but even if it was, they didn't keep it shorter, which meant that it just got taller and taller over the years. And if you were to cut it back down below the window now, it would kill the plant. And so you're kind of in this weird little spot where you have to rip all of it out and restart, which is what I would recommend, or if I bought this house is what I would do. I'd rip out all this stuff. But it's just a good reminder that you need to stay on top of your shrub trimming every single year and more often than that in order to keep them at the right size for your house. And then there's some points where it may pass the maturity point where this is obviously a healthy plant, but it's not the right thing for that point of the yard. And so they could put back in the same plant, but a dwarf variety of Giovan's, but then just stay on top of it and trim it regularly, and it would fit into that space really well. This is a pretty heavy shaded yard, and not all this yard is really woken up. This is St. Augustine grass, but it is starting to get tall, you can tell. And they've got some leaves and pollen here on the sides. This is a big red oak. Red oaks get huge. I was looking at this oak chart over here. Um, they get really, really big. They're one of the largest trees in Central Texas. This is just a beautiful look at. This is a deciduous tree. It drops all of its leaves in the winter. You can tell it's really filled out. Um, but the lighter green it is, the more recent the leaf has been. And so I just thought this was really pretty. But our deciduous trees are pretty much all filling in at this point. If you've got like a red oak or a live oak that's not, then you're in trouble. Which reminds me, I took a picture this morning of a live oak that was pretty, didn't have a whole bunch of, I forgot to put it in the slideshow, but it didn't have a bunch of leaves on it. And that's probably an indication that it's sick. I think this one specifically has oak wilt. So you do not want to be doing any kind of trimming of live oaks right now or red oaks, if you can avoid it, unless it's causing damage elsewhere in the yard, because you really will we're right in the dead center of risking oak wilt if you're not careful. And if you do need to protect some other property, then you need to paint it immediately. Like painting it the next day or 2 days later is not useful because it's already started to scab over. You need to do it within pretty much minutes. If there's any kind of cut larger than a little twig. Um, and then this little fella right here was on my truck this morning. We're about to all get run over by these little silkworms. This is obviously like a very small worm. Well, I don't know the context. This is the bed of my truck. Um, but these little guys here are about to be all over. I'm glad they're not that size. That would be disgusting. But these are little silkworms or tent worms. There's another name for them, I can't remember. But they hang from the little threads like spider webs all over the trees, and then you kind of walk through them and do the dance because something's on you. Um, so we're about to experience a whole bunch of that. They've started to come, but we're about to get a lot more of them. These things feed so many birds. They turn into little moths. But they are kind of gross and the kind of thing where you just kind of like are in a meeting and all of a sudden you've got a worm walking on your shoulder. You can expect that. It's about to happen if you're walking underneath any kind of oak trees over the next bit. You do not need to worry about these damaging trees. They do eat some leaves, but they just, unless it's an extraordinary infestation, I've never seen them really damage trees in a way that's scary and needs spraying. I'm sure it happens. I'm sure that some people run into that every year, but for the most part, I've never, it's very, very rare. So that is all that I have at this point. Cool. Have a great week.